for those that can, and hopefully you can actually hear me, what I want to talk about today, until people tend to actually jump on the call, if they do, is I want to talk about something important, right? So we're doing a live group coaching call just the other day. It was 2 weeks ago on Thursday. And I was chatting to a couple of people, right? And there's this interesting thing happening, right? So on the Thursday, I had a chat with, I did a group coaching call with some of our students that in one of our programs, and the issue of boundaries popped up, right? And then that night, I had one of my students call me and let me know about some, I guess you could call chaos that was happening in their life. And once again, the same issue popped up, which was this issue of boundaries being crossed. And, you know, it's really, really interesting, right? Because quite often there's a number of reasons why boundaries get crossed. But the main thing is, right, is that if you don't learn to enforce your boundaries, right, obviously the topic of this conversation here is your mental health and your emotional well-being. Because if we let people be in our lives that are always willing to continually cross our boundaries, right? Encroach upon the things that we deem important, what's going to happen is you're always going to feel bad. So two examples, right? So I'll give you the one that happened at nighttime first. So the one that happened at nighttime, there was this lady, right? And the people that were encroaching upon her values and crossing her boundaries and letting her down were her family, right? Which is always a hard thing, because, like, you know, when you think about family, like we're kind of conditioned to believe that, you know, oh, it's family, I just have to deal with their bullshit. I just have to make do with what I've got, right? But the fact is that, like, if you've got like people in your lives that are always encroaching on your values, that are never respecting your boundaries, never respecting you, right? Like, it's a tough conversation, but you have to learn to draw the line in the sand and just accept that, like, you can love someone, right, and not always spend time around them, if you know what I mean, right? And this particular person I was chatting to, right, like, is very, very interesting, because she'd done so much personal growth in a 12-month period. And I said to her, you've grown so much. Like, why are you going back to that old bullshit, right? Like, what's drawing you back there? And she couldn't really answer it. And it was really interesting, because I reflected it back on myself. And like, it reminded me of when I was younger, right? So I ran away from home when I was 11, and that was running away from my stepdad and my mum. And like, I went to live with my dad, and my dad basically said, that's it, no more ADHD medication for you. Grow up, be a fucking man. Here's some fucking responsibility. Get yourself to school, get yourself home, do your work, and behave yourself. You're not broken. Actually, be a decent person, right? That was my dad's approach. And like, as a result, like, I grew massively in a very, very short period of time. I didn't feel like a freak anymore. I didn't feel like an outcast. Nobody at this new school that I went to knew that I was diagnosed ASD, ADHD, and all this kind of bullshit. And as I grew, like, my personal growth happened, right? And I became better. I became more confident. I felt like less of a freak, right? I started to feel this inner desire, right? And I'll tell you the purpose of this story in a second. I started to feel this inner desire to go and prove to my mum and prove to my stepdad that, like, I'm not broken. And it was very, very interesting. I didn't realize it at the time, but this happened a number of times, right? I think 3 times it happened, 2 or 3 times. Like, I'd run away from my mum and dad, my stepdad, live with my dad, get my shit together, then have this internal unconscious desire to go back and prove that I'm not broken, to get their approval, right? Ultimately, that always ended in a shitstorm, because I'd go back and I'd get subjugated to the exact same bullshit that made me run away in the first place. So it was like this repeated loop where I'd go get personal growth, come back, try to get some approval from people that I don't necessarily need it from, especially my stepdad in this instance. And it would always explode in a massive, big, fiery explosion. And the last one happened with me almost getting into a fist fight with my stepdad in the driveway when I was like, I don't know, 14 or 15. And like this screaming at him, right? Like going, oh my God, I just want to kill you. You're a piece of shit. And then like having a complete breakdown with my mum as well. Because she sided with him over me and I felt betrayed. I'm like, how dare you side with him? I'm your son. And I was like a massive breakdown, right? But like the semblance between like this thing that was happening with this student of mine, and my own personal story was that I said to her, I said, like, do you feel like you're going back, you're getting like, 12 months of solid personal growth, and then you're feeling this need to go back and prove to your family that don't necessarily respect you, don't necessarily want you to succeed, that you're okay, that you're not broken. And she was on the call, and like she was crying for a number of reasons already before this conversation. But she kind of goes, oh my God, I think that's definitely right. I think there's some truth there. And like I said to her, I said, like, there's so many people in life that we, 0 to 14 is a very important period of time in our lives, because, we're modeling people around us. We develop our values, our beliefs, our standards, our expectations about the world should and shouldn't be. And we also have people that we look up to, that we seek approval from, right? And what can happen sometimes, and once again, just personal reflection, and also with clients that I've worked with over the last 10 years, sometimes we become lonely as well, as I'm thinking about it right now. Sometimes we can get lonely, and what can happen is, right, we're inherently social creatures, right? And this is something that inherently was born in us, over 15,000 years ago, right? 20,000 years ago, back when we were living in the caves, and like to band together as a tribe, and to have the support by people that are family, close ones, cousins, all that kind of bullshit, right? Like that kept us alive. And like we still have all of that kind of mechanisms hardwired into our neurology. So like I understand how we can sometimes seek the approval from those that we think are family, friends, close relatives and stuff like that. But moral of the story, right, is that like if, like me, every time you went back to get approval because you feel like you've grown and you've just expanded as a human being massively, if you always go back to try to get approval from someone that used to maybe treat you bad, make you feel like shit, and like I think there's an element of like proving them wrong as well. But if it always ends in a fiery explosion, you have to kind of ask yourself, well, how important is their approval in regards to you moving forward and creating the life that you want? Anyway, I thought that was very interesting, because what was happening was her family was crossing her boundaries, right? And like, I've done this for a long time now, and I've worked with literally hundreds upon hundreds of people. And the amount of people that are trying to move forward and create an amazing, wonderful life, right? Their businesses, their career, their finances, their health, their relationships, everything, right? The amount of people that are trying to move forward and create this beautiful life whilst being chained to their past. What I mean by that is, I mean that they've got trauma, they've got emotional baggage, they've got, hurt that they're carrying with them from their past. They've got this stuff from their past on one arm holding them back, right? That's like the emotional, psychological stuff. And then on the other arm, they've got friends, family, people that were there in the start, and they are the kind of people that support and know and expect you to be the old you, right? This is a very, very important distinction to understand, because like there are people in your life that they know and they're familiar and they're comfortable with how you used to be, right? And if you're not happy with how you used to be or how the circumstances used to be for you, then there's either a very tough conversation you need to have with those people, or you need to reduce the contact with them, right? Like I stopped talking to my mother there's been a number of times. We've had many explosive conversations and fallouts. But like at one point, like it was like a good 6 to 12 months, I just wasn't speaking to her at all. And I'm that kind of person, right? Like I'm feisty and fiery at the best of times. I've got a temper. I know that about myself, and like I express myself as well, which is very, very important. And if you don't set the line in the sand with those people that maybe treat you how you used to be, they expect you to be how you used to be, they don't see, respect, appreciate, encourage, congratulate you on wanting to be more in the future you want to create, you have to create a degree of separation between you and them, because they're the kind of people that are always, and this is very interesting, right? Because they have been around for a long time, even if consciously you go, okay, I'm not going to take their words to heart. The fact is that like if your mum, your dad, your sister, your brother, your cousins, if they start bad-mouthing and belittling your dreams, your hopes, your aspirations, even if you've got the strongest will, I don't care who you are, right? If you keep getting that bullshit by these people that have been around for a long time, unconsciously you're going to take that on board. And it's going to bring you down. It's going to make you feel like shit. So you have to either stand up for yourself, right? Like you have to grow a spine, stand up for yourself, which is hard sometimes. I appreciate that and I know that. But like if you don't stand up for yourself and set the boundary, they're always going to walk across you, right? They're going to walk you into the ground. And like, unfortunately, some people, when they find me and they end up doing coaching, like at the stage when they do coaching with me, they've already been walked all over by everybody in their life for years and years and years. So like there's a degree of rebuilding them up, right? Rebuilding their self-confidence, rebuilding their self-worth, rebuilding their character to not be the kind of person that always gets walked over by everybody and everyone around them. So really, really important. Anyway, I just went on a bit of a tangent, guys. So I just want to welcome in. What do we got? We got a couple of, oh no, the live just stopped, did it? Lost the live. That's okay. I'm recording it anyway. So